still sitting in your home here. That we're in good company. Everybody has questions, and the main burning question is, how on earth did you get to be the way you are? Where did you come from, Jacque?
I came from New York City. I was born in Manhattan. Family moved to Brooklyn, and it was during the Great Depression that all of these ideas were born. I'll give you an idea about some of them. There were about 15 million people sleeping in every empty lot when I was a kid, about 10 years old. The Depression, they were laid off, but they bought new homes and cars, and the banks failed. They were good people. They couldn't pay them off. So they gave them a limited time. You got to be out by February the 1st, if you don't make your payments. And I said, well, we'll get a job and we'll make our payments as soon as things pick up. I said, you got so much time. 15 million people is a lot of people sleeping in every empty lot in their cars. That's why I tell you I'm 92 years old. I've seen that. See, a lot of you guys came in on the tail end of that, maybe. And so when I've seen that, it looked awful. My father was an agriculturist, an agronomist. He was one of the first guys laid off. He couldn't get a job. I looked in store windows, and they had everything. Radio sets, vacuum cleaners. People didn't have the money to buy it, and it looked strange to me. And I thought maybe the rules of the game were not good. They worked at one time, but they don't work now. The earth is still the same place. How come everybody got laid off? Suddenly they don't have purchasing power. And I had no way of looking at it. Then there was a guy up on a soapbox. He called himself Mankind United. And he's talking about if man learned to live in harmony with one another and learn how to get along. No information, just wishes. I didn't care for that. There was another guy on a soapbox. Back to Jesus, family values. All the things. During the Depression, everybody was looking for new ways. It's amazing. Communism, socialism was up on soapboxes. The Secretary of State, the United States, went to Russia to see what they were doing. And he liked what they were doing. So they made a film called Mission to Moscow. You never even heard of it. Run in this country. Very successful. Favorable to communism. Of course, all that was taken away. It's gone now. You can't even see it anywhere. And I don't say it's good or bad, but that was good. It was more of an open system. Then there was a film called The March of Time. I don't know if any of you remember it. It was like a newsreel, used to appear in all the movie theaters. So the United States, The March of Time, as a film company, sent a film crew to Russia to see what they were doing. And they opened it by saying, we think that the Soviet Union communism will kill incentive. We think that the free enterprise system will generate more incentive. That's what they said. Then they said, but we wish you the best of luck on your new, unusual social experiment. And they shook hands. That was the March of Time. That was the America I grew up in. What are you afraid of? If people want to try a different social experiment or a new type of airplane, well, the chances are you're going to have trouble if the airplane's brand new, unless you've experimented a great deal with it. So it takes time to solve problems. So that was the time I was brought up in. And so I looked around. There was a guy on the soapbox talking about communism. So I walked over and says, I heard about communism from our government, and they're very much against it. So I don't believe what the Republicans say about the Democrats or what the Democrats say about the Republicans, or what we say about anybody, but I'd like to get it. What is communism? So he said, Sonny boy, go home. There was a lot of adults around this guy, and he tried to get rid of me. I said, no, I want to hear it from you. I want to know what it is. So he said, if the common man owned the means of production, he could never be laid off, and the profits would go to all people. And that sounded interesting and different to me. So I said to him, where can I find out more about it? He says, well, you have to go to the YCL. I said, what's that? He said, it's the Young Communist League. I said, where are they? And he gave me an address. And when I got there, there were children from about 8 years to 16. And they all had read great books, Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment, Our Plundered Planet, that book I'm telling about, long before Rachel Carlson. And these kids were very sharp. They were not ordinary kids. So I said, can I ask some questions? They said, yes. How are you going to prevent corruption after you get into power? How are you going to prevent people from living better than other people or getting rid of people that feel as a threat to their views? How are you going to house everybody? They say, well, we're pretty good people. We're not corrupt. I said, it doesn't take all people. Just a few that are corrupt can louse it up. I said, so how are we going to do these things? Well, when we get to that point, that we'll work on it. I said, let's start a technical branch of the Communist Party and work on those details. They said, you are a deviationist. I never heard that term. You're deviating from the teachings of Marx. You'll have to leave. I said, I'm not deviating. I'm trying to give you a way of solving problems. The vice president, another kid about 16, stood up and said, I'd like to hear him out. So they kicked us both out. That was my exposure to the Young Communist League. I don't say all communists are that dumb, but this guy was dumb because he lost tremendous advantages. So then I went to socialist meetings. And I said, all right, after the country is turned over to socialism, how do you deal with corruption, and how do you deal with serial killers and problems in government and embezzlement and money laundering and all those? They said, well, we're socialists. We're not into that sort of thing. I said, how do you prevent it? They said, well, we won't do those things. So I felt they were very sweet, very naive. Then I hitchhiked to California. And I want to tell you what happened. On the way, this woman drives up in a brand new car. And she must have weighed about 300 pounds, and had a big hat with cherries in it. I was thumbing my way to California, and she opened the door part of the way, and she said, are you a Christian? I said, what else? She said, get in. So I hadn't slept for days, hitchhiking on the highway. So I fell asleep in her car, and she poked me in the ribs, really hurt me. She said, you're not sleeping in my car. You're singing all the way to Texas. I said, what do you want me to sing? Jesus loves me, that I know, because the Bible tells me so. I felt she was a pretty stupid Christian, not a reflection of all Christians. My mother insisted that I go to church. And so the minister was talking about how wonderful God is. He makes it rain to make the plants grow. So I raised my hand and said, I wanted to know why it rained at sea. And he said, hold your hands out, and he beat the shit out of me. He really beat me up badly with a ruler for asking that question. He was also a stupid man. I only wanted to know. I was not there to contradict him. I wanted to understand what he was saying. So I kept away from religion because I always found that the people there just recited things, like rote memory. They had no answers in between. They said the Lord works in strange ways, I said, if I designed a bridge and it caved in, I can't say it's an act of God. It's bad mathematics or flawed engineering. You know what I mean? There's no way to say the Lord works in strange ways. Fresco doesn't work in strange ways. He has to understand these things. So I found that all religious people, although sincere, were not well read. And when they read things that differed from their religious teachings, they avoided it. They didn't inquire into things, and they didn't learn how to question all things. So lots of things were happening. People were moving toward metaphysics. That is, they believed there are things beyond the physical world, and if only we would give that attention, we would find out that it's not just the physical world, but there's worlds beyond the physical. And I wanted to know all about that. Because what the hell am I working in a lab for, trying to find out how things work? If there's such a thing as telepathy and consciousness, by opening your mind and meditating on your navel in the forest, you might get revelations. Without real knowledge, I couldn't imagine how anyone got any revelations. So I went to hundreds of seances and metaphysical meetings, and I saw strange things, because 2 Catholic priests used to attend my seminars. And they said, the trouble with you, Jacque, is you think everything could be solved materially, but there are things beyond the material. I said, I have never seen any yet. Have you? And they said, many times. I said, take me there, that's all, and let me see them. Well, they said they knew a woman at Palm Springs that had the power of telekinesis. So I said, what's that? She can move objects without touching them. I said, take me there. Because if that's so, the hell with science. I'm not interested in working my butt off when you can concentrate on things and reduce cancer and everything else. So I went to Palm Springs. But before I went there, I said, can I check it out when I'm there? He asked the woman, the priest, she said, of course. So I went there, and she put this big vase on the table, and she concentrated on it, and it began to move down the table. So I took my fountain pen, which was made of metal, and I'm moving it around the table, because I suspect something. And I got a 60-cycle hum. So I peeled the veneer off, and she had a bell buzzer with 4 rubber shock mounts. The table was highly polished and slightly tilted, and it moved. So I said, Father Dunn, here's how it's done, see? So she said to me, you SOB, you get the hell out of here. So I said, just a minute, I'm not your enemy. When you tell these kids you have magical powers, the people that were there, they don't work on problems. They hope things will work out. You have to get up off your butt and work on them. Blindness, leprosy, AIDS, whatever, you have to work and do a lot of studying. Hoping you get well and praying doesn't work, because I've never known a guy without an arm that went to Lourdes and says, I need an arm. Or without an eyeball. I need an eyeball. They always pray for things that are feasible. You know, I got a toothache. Will it diminish? Well, it usually does. And people get sick, and they usually get well in most instances, unless you go to an old folks' home. It's less probable. So prayer seemed ridiculous, because a guy would come with no legs and say, I need legs badly. And he'd have legs. That would be a miracle. And then I watched the Pope. When he prays, he always points to God. But when he goes to China, he points the wrong way. You know what I mean? He points the opposite direction. Depends on where he is in the world. He's pointing all over the place.